Hello, my name is Annahid Dashtgard. I am many things, co-founder of Anima Leadership and author of the recent memoir, Breaking the Ocean, Race, Rebellion, and Reconciliation. I'm going to talk about how, in order to live well, we need to feel a sense of belonging. We all know what that feels like. It's that feeling of walking into a room with a handful of our favorite people, and the self that shows up in that environment. Our shoulders drop. We make more jokes without caring if anyone laughs or not. And we allow ourselves to be quiet. We can touch our own soul selves and meet the deepest need of the moment with the brilliance of our own knowing. We often teach, it is said, what we most need to learn, and indeed it has been the case in my journey. The search to belong has been the defining mission in my life, one that was damaged for me in the crossing of ocean in order to reach these shores. Naira Waheed, Black Muslim American poet, wrote, "You broke the ocean in half to be here, only to meet nothing that wants you. Immigrant." That's what it felt like for me. We left our country of origin, Iran, like many immigrants, not because of choice, but forced exile. A revolution, threats to my parents, curbed opportunities for us kids, and arrived in small-town Canada when I was 9. My experience wasn't just being chosen last for teams. It was indeed much worse than that, where it involved being spat on, being called racial slurs like Paki on a regular basis, and various other forms of social shunning. And of course, it wasn't just confined to the school environment, but it was part of the broader community. At one point, when I was 11 years old, I went after my coveted Girl Guides camping badge, and of course, it involved a camping trip. I don't remember a lot of that excursion, but what I remember is a particular moment of standing in the communal kitchen where the Girl Guide leader, an older white woman, asked me to hand her the manual can opener. Now, I did not know what that looked like. Like many immigrant parents, my mother was making ends meet, working part-time in the housewares department at the Bay. We had an electric can opener. What I do remember is standing rooted to the spot in that moment, so scared, shame coursing through my body, afraid that I was going to get it wrong. The Girl Guide leader reached past me, toppling me over in the process, pulled the drawer open, grabbed the can opener, brandished it above her head, and said, "You don't know what a can opener looks like?" Like I was the stupidest creature on earth, not just in the room. The thing is, it wasn't just that one moment. It was one of many such moments, such that I lost faith, not just in those around me, but more importantly, in myself. Feeling excluded was one of the driving forces that later would manifest in a number of physical and mental health struggles that started at a very young age, including an eating disorder, as well as various obsessive compulsive behaviors that would reoccur through most of my adult life. And there I need to swallow some water. No coincidence. So many of us have these experiences of not belonging. We know what it's like. That feeling of no matter how hard we try, we're not going to measure up, not going to fit in somehow, the imposter syndrome described earlier. The impact, if you can recall, is not cerebral but primal, a jolt to the nervous system, a switch over from parasympathetic to sympathetic, in other words, from at ease to fight or flight. For many people, the experience of rejection is limited to a club, a classroom, a sports team. It can be pasted over with new experiences. Yet for others, the exclusion can be ongoing. Racism, homophobia, ableism, being born into the wrong color of skin, loving the wrong gender, having the wrong mental or physical capacity. Wrong, wrong, wrong. In such systems, the impacts are frequent, daily, oppressive. It's easy to become hypervigilant, rarely at ease in one's own skin. How does one live well in systems that regularly discriminate against certain identity groups, Indigenous people, people of color, women, those that identify as being LGBTQ2S, keeping them in a position of feeling less than? How do you learn not to self-hate? In my experience, belonging is both a personal and a collective experience. It's working to self-love while also working for justice. In every institution that I walk into as a speaker, educator, and consultant, I hear the stories, the many stories of people who learn over time to cut off 20, 40, 60, sometimes 80% of who they are because they have learned that they have to in order to survive. The Black teacher who has learned to be so careful so as not to offend white parents. The people who learn to shorten their names because others can't be bothered to learn or pronounce them correctly. The women who have to work twice as hard for half the recognition, whose ideas only get validated when they come out of the mouths of men. Belonging is not a random experience. Belonging is tied to how much we fit into the social norms or what is considered normal in the historical moment that we are born into. Belonging is about social power. When I moved to Canada, the vast majority of all the teachers, community leaders, judges, and police were all white people. Although some of that has changed, a lot of it hasn't, especially in key decision-making roles across our nation. That's a problem. We can have good intentions and still unintentionally discriminate. Although I'm a content expert now with over 2 decades plus experience, I still regularly walk into rooms with one of my white employees and watch people's attention, questions, and compliments skew towards them. These unintentional exclusions or micro inequities are as painful in a way as the more overt forms of discrimination I encountered when younger. More so in some ways because they are both ubiquitous and invisible. The bleeding is internal. The emotional labor in determining whether to interrupt or to swallow. Either way, there is risk involved. Our identity always shapes our experience of belonging. In closing, watch who you gravitate towards. Become aware of what parts of your own identity make things easier or perhaps more challenging, which parts give you more access to voice and power, and which less so. Creating more diversity in our country and communities is easy. Creating equal access to belonging takes work, and it is the noblest work. For people's sense of belonging determines nothing less than how well they get to live. For doesn't everyone deserve to feel safe in their own skin, to find their place on this mad human journey, to speak truth, to love fiercely, and to cry belonging as our birthright is what a good life is all about. Thank you.